the system you guys work on is called closed loop habitat design. Am I right? Or partially?
We no longer use that exclusively. I think it began initially. So the closed loop habitat, the idea is where you have a system where the energy and mass doesn't escape the system. All the resources such as water, nutrients, carbon is recycled within the system, and you build an ecosystem where plants and humans are sort of interacting, right? So plants release carbon dioxide when they photosynthesize, which plants release oxygen. Oh my God, plants release oxygen when they photosynthesize, which the humans can breathe in and release CO2, and that CO2 the plants can absorb for photosynthesis. So that is sort of a closed system. Right. Same thing with nutrients.
So
right?
you guys used to work on that before. So what did you mean by you guys no longer use that?
So we don't have a system that does that explicitly, but our lab has worked with a consortium. It's a consortium of research centers that developed a program called Melissa. The goal of the project is to develop this closed loop system. How would you recycle the mass and energy within a system? The human inputs, human outputs with plant inputs and outputs.
No escape from this system.
As much as possible.
So why is it difficult to build such a system?
There's a lot of conversions that has to happen. Some of it is seamless. The gaseous part is fine. Humans breathe in, breathe out. Plants, breathe in, breathe out. But the physical matter part, when humans consume the plants, which is fine. But then the byproduct of humans, right? So human waste, if it goes back into the system, there's so many problems and regulations, safety concerns you have to address. You also have to change the form of those materials. Even consider plants. Let's say you're growing tomatoes, right? So you grow the tomato from start to finish. You harvest your tomatoes, which has the nutrients and calories that humans need. But then you have the plant, which is in traditional sense a waste. But in space, there's no thing as waste. You cannot throw things away. So you have to figure out to convert that inedible plant mass into something that can be useful. Typically, that would be converting, decomposing that and then breaking it down, let's say by composting, and then reusing that for plant production. So the nutrients in that inedible portion will be put back into the system and the plants will use it again. If it's something like lettuce, you eat most of the plants with only a little bit of roots left. But if it's a tomato plant, then you have to manage the whole thing. So you have to figure out how to convert that. So you have to take the water out and extract the nutrients, extract the carbon. So that conversion is problematic, because if you're using any if it's a chemical system, if you're just physical or chemical system, you're just burning it and then using the ash in some form, it's fine. But if you're using a biological system to compost plants, it's not consistent, right? It can change. That not being standardized can create some issues. You want something to be as standardized as possible. That improves your, efficiency, at least in space. So that's a challenge we have to figure out. But eventually there's entropy. So you cannot run a completely perfect closed loop system. So you still have to bring in
battle with entropy.
Yeah, you still have to bring some raw materials, 100%. But yeah, bringing in the raw materials is not the problem. It's that maintaining that closed loop is the problem. Mm-hmm. It's a challenge.
So how does it look like? It's like a rectangular box or something. I mean, that's what comes to my mind when I think of closed loop system.
100%. So that would contain different components, different systems. If you think of Earth, it's sort of it's not a purely closed system in that we get energy from the sun.
Right.
But otherwise, you have mass and energy sort of recirculating within the ecosystem, right? So plants die, decompose, go into the soil. Soil microbiome, handles the decomposition. The nutrients are then used back by the plants. There's the water exchange. We eat plants for our food, stuff like that. So a closed loop system for space would be something like, first off, you'll be probably living underground because it provides shielding from the radiation. You might have a plant production center where it's a room that you walk in and there's, it's controlled environment. You have plants growing in hydroponic setup, let's say under LED lights. And then you take the harvests from there and then take it into your human living quarters, where humans then can cook and eat it. And then any human waste will probably go out. Human waste and plant waste will go out to another system which handles the waste, converts it into whatever usable form. If it's a composting system, it's a composting system. It could also be an incinerator, or you can do physical chemical treatment. You could do anaerobic digestion. There are many different options. So there will be some sort of system to handle the waste and convert it, and then you bring that back into the plant production systems. That's sort of a very crude setup of how that would look like. There will also be the air handling systems. The air will be circulated throughout the system such that whatever CO2 that's emitted by humans will be used by the plants, and vice versa.
So the closed loop system is what being used in this space, ISS, like International Space Station, by the astronauts to grow food.
The system used in the International Space Station is sort of a closed loop system, particularly for water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so literally today's urine is tomorrow's coffee in the space station.
Right.
Yes. So whatever the astronauts pee out gets cleaned, and then comes back in the system as drinking water. So that's
strong espresso.
Oh yeah. So that's physical chemical systems. There's no biological life support system. So biological life support system is where you incorporate the biological components, right? Using plants, using microbes to recycle or convert mass and energy in the system, which is sort of the next step. And for any long-term habitation, I think it has to be some form of biological and physical chemical. We need both, but we definitely need biological. We can't rely solely on physical and chemical.
Creating closed-loop system is like a great challenge. It's a necessary technology for space agriculture. Like if we have to grow things on space, it seems crucial.
Yeah.
You mean we haven't reached a perfection in our closed loop system?
Not perfection. Yeah.
So so where is the challenge here to better this technology?
I think dealing with the inconsistency of a biological system or low predictability of a biological system, it gets much more complex. The microbiome, let's say, the microbes in the system, the plants, how they react, and something as simple as composting. You compost plants, right? So the water content in the plants can affect how well it's composted. The mixture, so if it's 50 kg of tomato plants and 50 kg of lettuce plant waste, right? That outcome, if you compost that, it's a different product than composting only tomato plants or some other mixture, right? So the system is not homogeneous.
Right.
That's one challenge. So you don't know exactly what you can expect from the compost. What is the balance of nutrients, right? If you have too much of nitrogen or too much of phosphorus or not enough nitrogen. So it's hard to deal with that inconsistency. And dealing with that inconsistency is also dependent on sensor technology. So you have to know what's in the compost, let's say. And we don't have any reliable method of, just dipping a probe in the compost and saying, okay, this is the nutrient composition. We're not there yet. We have to do expensive, high performance liquid chromatography analysis to know what's in the
accurately.
Compost. Yeah. There's no handheld methods that can read some parameters. So the lack of sensors is also another challenge for all these for building the system. But it's progressing, I think, slowly. We have a lot of computer systems, computer vision. That's getting better. But in terms of measuring the nutrients, that's a major challenge.
So you need to know every details, what's happening in the... Like it gets complex and complex, as I said, like interaction of microbes with the plant and microbes with the dead plant.
Yes.
And microbes with the mixture of dead plants. And it gets more complex and complex. Nice.
And even human waste, right? You don't know what's in the human waste.
So in the closed loop system, you also feed the human waste.
Ideally, if it's a purely closed loop system, then human waste is still some sort of resource, right? It's still part of the system. It has to go somewhere. But it's much more challenging for sure because of the sanitation and health risks.
Right.
Yeah.